This is Marcus South, a.k.a. Martinez from Lucha Underground, and you're watching the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined as always by Jason Brooks. Jason, New York is the Corona capital of the world. Chicago, not too far behind. How's your day going?
It's good. Worked out today. Hurt my back again. Getting old sucks. And still moving stuff into the new condo. Still trying to get stuff worked out. Took a nice long nap today. So it's been busy. Trying to stay busy, and trying to watch wrestling, get the news in. It's been pretty crazy still.
I hear you. I went out of the house for the first time in a week and a half. I actually walked outside. I think maybe it's starting to get better. Or I just totally couldn't take being in the house anymore. I don't know, one or the other. But
the good thing for us is we have a dog, so we have to take him out 3 times a day. So we have to get out no matter what for that. Going in the house makes you stir crazy.
Yeah.
The mayor of Chicago today is forbidding anyone from going. She closed down all the parks, so people can't go to the parks because it was like 60 degrees yesterday. So there were a ton of people out because they've been stuck inside forever, and she went crazy. So it's just, the whole country is basically on lockdown.
Hey, hopefully the best is ahead, but people are not here to listen to us talk about what we don't really know about. But let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania 36 is a week away. As we spoke last week with Jay Washington, the event will now be 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And according to Post Wrestling, John Pollock reported last week that they were recording the show yesterday, Wednesday, and today, Thursday. AEW did recordings all week. So at least we know there's a WrestleMania. Past that, we don't know what's going to happen, but what's your thoughts on WrestleMania, basically, I guess, being in the can and maybe, some of the pluses and the minuses?
Yeah, so the one thing we're probably not going to get is spoilers because there was nobody there to watch the show. So that's a good thing. I'm curious to see what the main event's going to be. I'm curious to see how they lay these matches out. Did they just have a bunch of empty arena matches? Supposedly the Boneyard match is going to be some type of special match outside of the ring, outside of the arena. The Wyatt Cena match is supposed to be some weird match outside of the arena. So they're trying to do some different things, which is definitely a good thing. Even if the show's terrible, it's something to watch over 2 nights. So I'm going to be into it no matter what, no matter how weird it is. I expect it to be a good show, but, God, are they going to be 3 hours long? Is it going to be, how are they going to set this whole thing up? These empty arena shows, I thought NXT had a really good show yesterday, and these empty arena shows can still be solid, but they're really going to have to throw some pizzazz on there. And the most bizarre thing is down the road, we're going to see all the WrestleManias, WrestleMania 1 through, 35. Let's say 80, right? Let's say we, make it that long. WrestleMania, and we're going to look back, and WrestleMania 36 is going to be in an empty fucking building. Like, it's insane.
I'm going to go with maybe a positive here, and this isn't my original thought. Other people have said this. I think we might have a pretty good WrestleMania because these matches are all taped. And even I think we all thought Goldberg versus Reigns was going to be a disaster because Goldberg's terrible and old, and Reigns in front of a live crowd would get booed and, might screw up some of the momentum they want. But the idea that they can go and tape this match, 5 or 6 different times, get the exact angles, cut things, like truly, they have some of the best people in the business when it comes to editing there. We see what all the editing patches they do. They can make Goldberg versus Reigns a 12-minute match, which is actually will look pretty good. They could have some of these matches. We're never going to make, Elias versus Corbin watchable.
Yeah, but I think Corey, the WrestleMania is not a work rate show. WrestleMania, they say Wrestle Kingdom is the WrestleMania of the WrestleMania
New Japan.
of New Japan. But it's not really the case because Wrestle Kingdom's usually a really, really good work rate show. WrestleMania has not really ever been that show. It's never been a show with a bunch of great matches. It's a show because it's a spectacle. It's a great show because it's a spectacle and because of the fans and how into it they are, and people flying from all over the world for this show and how invested the audience is, and whether they're booing people or cheering people, they're into it, right? That's one of the reasons why these stadiums have kind of, I don't know, in my opinion, taken away from some of the WrestleManias of the last, 5-10 years, however long they've been doing this. But as much as they could tape and retape Goldberg and whatever and do all that, like, they're not going to have a better match than Roderick Strong had with Matt Riddle on NXT this week. Or, you know what I'm saying? So, like, it's fine. They can have a good, passable match, and it'll be fine. But, man, there's no audience there. And I think that, and I get it. There's nothing they can do. It's not WWE's fault. But, I mean, you're right. It is a positive. But to me, WrestleMania is the spectacle. Like, that's the kind of the point of the whole show.
Right. Jerry Lawler was interviewed last week. I don't remember from where, but he had said that he thought they should pipe in, crowd reaction, different things. Do you think that's a good idea just to give it ambiance, or do you think that would be a good idea?
No. I mean, I love what AEW did 2 weeks ago, but they couldn't do it. They can't do it anymore. You can't have more than 10 people in a crowd or whatever in a room. So you can't do that anymore. But I love the AEW did, having the members, having people in the audience, having wrestlers in the audience kind of making noise. I think piping noise would sound really, I don't know if that would sound good. But it's something they might have to investigate the longer this goes on. I mean, we had so many more new cases today, and it's going to continue for at least the next month. We're going to keep having this happen. And then maybe in May, hopefully it'll die down. So what's that? A month worth of shows. So maybe they might have to do something like that. I just don't know how it would sound.
Yeah, I mean, they did say that I guess there's a 2-week ban in Florida coming as of tomorrow, and that's why WWE and AEW both have been recording shows, and they've recorded up to the Raw following WrestleMania because I guess they're expecting that Florida will lift their ban for that SmackDown and I guess NXT. So it's a shelter in place. So that's going to start tomorrow. That's what I heard. Yeah. So if they start tomorrow and they do it for 2 weeks, that would take them to SmackDown. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I know Florida kind of has their own rules. They're almost their own country in some ways. But a couple of states like that, but yeah. Yeah, especially Florida. But I don't know that. I think that's going to be real tricky. I really do. The governor of Florida is going by the president's timeline of everything's going to be fine. Easter Sunday, which it's not. So I mean that's what they're going by. It's but again they could figure it out. Do highlight packages for a week if it's not been lifted yet. I mean they could figure stuff out. Now, one of the things that has been a downside as a result of the coronavirus is that last week on SmackDown, we'll get into the really bad of SmackDown in a minute, but was that not that Dana Brooke is the greatest worker in the world by any stretch, but she was initially announced for the, I guess, the six-pack challenge for the women's title, and she's been removed from the show. She's in quarantine. No, we don't know if she's tested positive or not, but her and Rey Mysterio Jr. are both off the show, and that's one of the reasons why they went from having Rey Mysterio beat Cien Almas and Hector Garza's kid, Angel Garza. Sorry, I forgot his name there for a second. 2 weeks in a row that looked like he was setting up a U.S. Title match. So then they've decided to move on to having them going for the tag team titles. Yeah. But, so there have been different ideas. And this just keeps on going with the idea of not to be negative, but if you were going to do this taping schedule, they should have been taping things for weeks, I mean. Yeah, but Corey, I think they didn't realize this to shelter. Now, should they have forethought and said, hey, all these states are shutting down, doing shelter in place? Maybe we should do some of these tapings ahead of time. I mean, they probably should have thought that. But AEW did the same thing.
And I know AEW likes having live TV and live shows, so that's a big part of their brand. So I get that too. But yeah, neither company thought about, hey, they're going to do the shelter in place soon. All these states are doing it. What are we going to do in that case? So they're thinking on the fly. It's a really hard situation because this is unprecedented. So.
I mean, the network has had its problems over the years, and we've documented, through our 200 plus shows on the idea that subs have gone up and down with the network, and they're giving away WrestleMania for free if you're a new subscriber, and they're doing more stuff with the network now where you can watch old stuff for free. But do you think the fact that it's the only thing on in a week and a half, that this is going to be more watched WrestleMania than past years on the network, or do you think that it's going to be about the same? I mean, what do you think WrestleMania is going to be here?
Well, I thought the ratings would go up for AEW, for NXT, for Raw, for SmackDown, and we haven't seen that.
Yeah. SmackDown was up, Raw was down.
Yeah, I mean, and SmackDown's been doing pretty well in the ratings regardless, but Raw's not been doing great. I think Raw was really down this week. Right. NXT was down. NXT was up from last week, but they were still down from where they've been overall, and AEW was down. So, I mean, more people aren't necessarily watching like we thought they did. Now, I know the ratings for the WrestleMania replay on ESPN was good. But I think that's kind of a force of habit. I think people just kind of turn on ESPN and just blindly watch it. So I don't know if that's a great indication. So, yeah, the ratings haven't been great. But do I think people watch WrestleMania? Of course, because WrestleMania is a big-time show. And so, yeah, I think people watch it just because it's WrestleMania.
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting in that respect, and where – the rating, AEW was down this week. NXT went from doing a tape show or just, clips, that great documentary of Gargano and Ciampa, which we both thought was really interesting. 500 plus, 1,000 watched it compared to, the 900,000 the week before, but their ratings were up. But from what you could see, news programs are way up.
Obviously, of
course. Take out the news programs and some show called, some show on VH1, Black Ink's crew, which I've never heard of until about an hour ago when I was reading.
And people are watching Netflix too.
Right.
People are watching. People either want a complete distraction and they're just burning through TV shows, or they're like watching the news, freaking out.
Right.
So I think that's taking away from people's mind too.
Right. I mean, what I was saying was, besides, like I said, that VH1 show and the news programs, AEW is still number 2. If you take out, like I said, the news programs, AEW's their ratings were down. I mean, we're moving around here. I apologize, but AEW was down this week from the 900 to about, I think it was like 815 or whatever it was this week. But like I said, if you take out the news programs and that VH1 show, they were number 2.
Yeah, but forget about that. The point is that the shows overall are, other than SmackDown, are down.
Sure.
And Raw is down a lot. So the point is, we thought more people would watch. Doesn't matter. Demographics and this, we just thought more people would watch. The ratings would be higher, and they aren't. And I think that that's interesting and not something that I thought would happen. But I think this pandemic is really freaking people out. So they either want to watch Love is Blind or The Tiger King, or they want to watch Fox News and MSNBC and freak out. So it's kind of like one or the other.
Yeah, I haven't watched Tiger King yet. I hear it's interesting.
Neither have I, but my wife we're watching Love is Blind. So
God bless you.
It's fine.
All right, I'll let you have that one. So moving on, one of the things that you brought up was that wrestlers are not happy with Mania being taped. Just give a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I guess Meltzer and Alvarez have talked about how they've talked to some of the wrestlers, some people backstage, and how basically everyone they've talked to is not in favor of them doing WrestleMania at this time, except for one guy. And we know who that is, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. And so there is a lot of, and again, they get paid, is what it is. But yeah, a lot of wrestlers are not in favor of doing it, and I don't blame them. It doesn't totally make sense for them to do it, and I think they are probably thinking kind of what I said. WrestleMania is about the spectacle. It's about the fans. It's about people traveling from all over the place. About the entrances, right? Like, what do you remember more, the Triple H Sting match or Triple H entrance to the match? You know what I'm saying? So, like, WrestleMania is about moments, and moments that's audience who make those moments as well. You know, when Undertaker lost and they had that guy in the crowd and he was like in shock, right? That's a moment. And we're gonna get an empty arena match, you know. Not also thrown into the fact the coronavirus in general and how easily it is to spread and these numbers that we're seeing, and people are scared. So, I mean, they have a right to be upset for sure, but Vince McMahon's the boss and he's gonna do what he's gonna do.
Hey, I don't know if you got a chance to see. I didn't hear it, but I read that the Bellas, I guess, have many different things. They have a podcast. And this past week, Brie Bella.
Those girls make their money, man. They get their money. They, for their lack of wrestling ability, they weren't horrible. They just weren't very good. They have really made a multimedia empire. So good for them.
Right, but on their podcast, Brie Bella mentioned how she's very nervous about Daniel Bryan being doing these shows because I guess he's had different different ailments over. I don't remember.
Well, he has an autoimmune disease, and he had asthma when he was a kid. Actually, similar to me. My asthma when I was a kid was really bad. I have an autoimmune disease now, so it makes sense. Her concerns are basically some of the same concerns that like my wife has about me. So right. I'm not a professional wrestler.
Right. And as a result, once they're done with the tapings, he's going to go back home, and they're going to have him basically quarantined from the family. You know, basically that the whole entire time that they would be off. One, because of course she's pregnant, but two, because like I said, for safety issues. And it just brings up the idea. I don't know if I've actually ever asked you this straight out, but how comfortable in the 4 weeks you've been back, how comfortable do you feel about them actually doing WrestleMania? Because for me personally, I don't know if I said this on air yet, but I really don't feel this is the right thing to do. You know, I mean, I understand that it's WrestleMania and Vince McMahon, just like after 9/11 and all these other things, he's always goes, we're doing this no matter what, you know, just like Dana White with the UFC right now, getting a lot of, you know, hell for what he's said over the last couple of days. But what's your thoughts on them doing WrestleMania?
I don't love it. I don't think it's a great idea. I love the idea of doing an MSG show in June. I loved it. Now, the other thought is maybe things won't be settled by then either. I mean, they're talking about canceling sports seasons. So they already canceled the Olympics. So, I mean, there's a chance in June this would still be an issue. I mean, I think we're in it for the long haul, unfortunately. But at least, I don't know. I know stretching the storylines out. I get it. How do you put stuff on hold? But I just think we're in an unprecedented time. You know, they've canceled every single sporting event. Every single league is canceled. Every single one. No empty arena gimmicks. Just completely empty. Why do they need to have WrestleMania? You know, just do a month of packages, highlight certain guys, do replays. Why do we need to do a live show? Why do we need to do that for the next month? I mean, it's good for us to talk about, you know, things like that. But to me, it's like, let's just hold everything for at least a month, let things die down, and then see what we're doing, see where we're at in a month from now.
I don't disagree with you. Like I said, I mean, I think this is all just like I was saying, like with Dana White in the UFC, this is all based on ego for Vince McMahon saying, you know, if everyone says you can't do something, I'm doing it no matter what. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to AEW in a little while, but look at that whole Brody King, Brody, I said it again, Brody King, where his character is basically a mock of all the things that apparently people have said about Vince McMahon over the years. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more stuff that, you know, the characterization where, you know, daddy eats first and, you know, if someone coughs, you know, he makes them leave a room. I mean, Vince McMahon over the years has, you know, basically said that he doesn't believe, you know, that people should get colds. I mean, he's a workaholic. I mean, you know, he's, like I said, it's his way or the highway. And I think this is all has to do with the ego of these, you know, super wealthy, rich men, white, black, really doesn't matter. But these wealthy men who are just saying, I'm doing what I want. It's my company. It's my world, you know?
And you know what? This is right. And like Saudi Arabia, if people don't want to be on the show, they could just not be on the show. But, or if they're quarantined and they're sick, then they absolutely cannot be on the show. But everyone's on the show. So people are bitching and complaining, but everybody's doing it. Everyone wants their payday. So, that is going to happen. But, man, what a bummer. What a bummer.
I agree. Now, another thing that you brought up to me before the show, sticking with, because we mentioned ESPN a moment ago, business world thinks WWE pay-per-views to ESPN is dead. I'm actually a little bit surprised on that, due to the fact of how well the ratings were with the 800,000+ views for WrestleMania 30, and we'll see how WrestleMania, I think it was 32 and I guess 34 are the ones I'll be airing the next 2 Sundays, which is actually kind of weird. They're going to be having a show running up against WrestleMania, which is just bizarre to begin with. But ESPN, I mean, wouldn't you think if those numbers are doing well, they would be better chance that something would happen with an ESPN pay-per-view type of model, ESPN Plus?
Yeah, so Alan Gould, who works for Loop Capital, this is something from Deadline. Basically, he said, we do not believe Mr. McMahon would be entering a prepaid forward contract on 15% of the shares, about 3.5 million of them, in front of such an announcement. So it really has to do with his shares. Again, we're not business experts here. This is something that is from a business article. So essentially, I think because of the way the market is and what Vince is doing with the shares, he'd have to put up a lot of his shares for this to work. Mm-hmm. He'd be basically giving up money, it sounds like, on the front end with the WWE network to get that money on the back end with ESPN. And they feel like that's not what's going to happen. Who knows? Business people's, their job is to forecast, to give an idea on the market, to give an idea of what things are going to look like. So they're forecasting. They're not always right? It's like gambling to a certain extent. So who knows? But at this point, they're saying they don't think that based off of the business forecast, based off of McMahon, that this is something that they're going to do. So we'll see. I agree with you. I think I'm surprised that they're not moving forward. I think the only reason why they wouldn't move forward is because of everything that's going on right now. Maybe everyone just takes a step back and they just think about what they're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's going to be interesting how all of this plays out. I mean, like I said, I actually even watched a couple of minutes of the ESPN's WrestleMania 30. I had it on the background because, like I said, once again, there was nothing on TV, and I wasn't ready to watch Tiger King or whatever that show was called. So I wasn't on the doing the Netflix and chill by myself on the couch. But I think the UFC has shown that the pay-per-view market is definitely not down. AEW has done well with their buys on pay-per-view, and ESPN Plus apparently has been a very good partner with UFC, and Dana White and UFC are pretty good friends from everything you read. You would think that Dana White would be one of those people in Vince McMahon's ear saying, this has helped my company, it could help yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vince McMahon's going to do what he's going to do.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I agree. I don't see any reason why this couldn't get done. Maybe not right this second, but definitely down the road. So we'll see. I could easily picture after things have settled down, after the markets have settled down, that they decided to look into doing this. The thing is, obviously, you would think they would do it around SummerSlam time, maybe. But yeah, we'll see how everything works out.
All right. Unless you have something else on the subject, moving on to something a little bit less, a little more lighthearted.
Before we get into other heavy stuff.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry. I was so flabbergasted by how bad it was. You usually do our Twitter on Work Shoot Pod. I'm at Paladin808. I know nobody cares about that, but I watched the beginning of SmackDown this past week, and Gronkowski. What the hell was that? I mean,
yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. It was a terrible. It was terrible. It was a terrible segment. It was a terrible segment. I think he's officially a member of the SmackDown roster, by the way.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, it was a terrible segment. He looked like a total goof. The Corbin thing was stupid. But this is he's on the. He's not. We know what SmackDown is. It's the celebrity show. It's the show for people, not marks like us, but for people who are like, oh, Gronk's on SmackDown. Let me watch it and see what he's gonna do.
Hey, he helped apparently.
Yeah, right. So that's the point of it. So and that's why, again, we've talked about this. I don't watch SmackDown, but yeah, I've watched it the last couple of weeks, but the reason why I don't really love the show is because it's just not a work rate show. It's just not. It's a really, and so the Gronk thing didn't surprise me. I thought it was bad. Mojo Rawley, I think, actually had some momentum as a heel, and now he's back to just being Gronk's sidekick. So yeah.
I mean, does this lead to Gronk versus Mojo?
I gotta hope not. I mean,
guys who aren't very good.
Please no.
Yeah, let's have somebody in there who can carry him. SmackDown, like always, not exactly the most noteworthy show. I didn't think SmackDown was terrible, but one thing that WWE has learned, and I think it's a positive, that they saw maybe they say they never watch AEW. AEW doesn't exist, but after last week's AEW, they changed their camera angles for the shows, and I think it helped a ton.
I agree 100%. I think the camera angles really, really helped. The AEW show last week was really the model for how these shows should be done.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. Yeah, and WWE definitely took some of their ideas. Absolutely. And I think it was a good idea.
Like I said, nothing else really on. I mean, I know you haven't watched him forever. I mean, I find this Mandy Otis thing interesting. I think now would definitely be on the card because it's 2 days with the shows. We'll see where that goes. Yeah. Usos versus the New Day will be the big match this Friday, which of course has already been taped. We'll find out who will be facing Miz and Morrison, in which I'm guessing one of the last 2 matches that most likely will be announced. I'm guessing there'll be a schmozz finish. It'll be a 3-way. I can't see why the Usos or the New Day wouldn't be on the show, but I guess that's one thing to look out for our last show this week when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, and was it Gulak and Nakamura, right?
That's right. We got
that should be a pretty good. That should be a good match. I think that could be a really, really good match. 2 contrasting styles. Obviously, we think Gulak's going to win, so Brian gets the title shot. But it should be a fun match.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll get into more stuff as we go along here. But one thing that is interesting that happened, I guess, today is, everyone thought that, that NXT, what was going to happen with NXT? Because we didn't I mean, unless you've been super close on this, I didn't realize NXT had been canceled. I guess we should have realized that with WrestleMania being 2 days.
They didn't really announce. They didn't really say there's no takeover. They didn't really formally announce that. I don't think.
Well, but what they're going to do is over the next, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks, NXT takeover, the matches will happen on the USA Network.
Yeah.
Which I think is smart. And,
I mean, I don't think they had a choice, really. But
do you think, though, that will hurt NXT as much as WrestleMania? Do you think NXT is so much more of a work rate product that, these guys are not that they're used to working in small crowds, but they're used to the idea of just being the in-ring product, not the spectacle aspect, that maybe NXT won't be as much affected by, the no crowd with their, the Super Show match they're going to be having?
The short answer to your question is yes. I think they'll be fine because it's a work rate show, because the show is more about the wrestling and the performers rather than the spectacle of it. It'll still be hurt, of course, because the NXT crowd is almost like another
member of the family.
Character. Yeah, like another member of the roster. So they'll definitely be hurt by that. But, I mean, yesterday's show was really solid. I really enjoyed the show for the empty arena. They did everything they could. I love the Gargano, Ciampa, Triple H segment. I enjoyed it. So I thought they did some good stuff. I thought the matches were solid too. So I think it'll be a good show.
So let's get into the Wednesday Night War, as it's been dubbed over the last couple of months. I thought both shows were good. I don't think either one was a blowaway show. I think the Killer Cross, just like Io Shirai, their debuts, similar to Brody Lee and Matt Hardy, I think would have been much bigger with the idea of a crowd. Love that Io Shirai is back, but you you would have liked for her debut to be, seem like a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? They have no crowd, so this is what it is. Unfortunately, it's just like I said, like we've been saying, it's a bummer. But I like that she squashed her. They didn't do this thing of having some long match. She basically killed her.
Leah, right?
Yeah, Leah. Killer Cross's debut was interesting, and obviously he's going to be in the mix of stuff. Very curious to see how he is moving forward. I watched his match, and again, I'm not too familiar with his work. I know he was in Lucha Underground, and he was in Impact.
An MLW.
An MLW, yeah. Well, he's an MLW for 2 matches. Like he was on last week for the Lawler match, which I wasn't super impressed with, and then they had an 8-man tag this week. So I think that's his last appearance. I think he's only gonna make 2 appearances. So
I didn't know that.
I think so. He might make more, obviously, because they're already taped. They're in the can, so he may make more. But I mean, who knows? So we'll see how his debut goes and how he does.
So what did you think of NXT as a whole? Like I said, I thought it was a good show. I didn't think it was a blowaway show. I mean,
it's like I said, I thought it was a good show. I thought they did a good job. They went back to basics in terms of having a couple, having a vignette or 2 in there, having a interview segment, then having solid matches throughout. So yeah, I thought it was a quality, entertaining show for sure.
Before I forget, do you know, is Bianca Belair hurt? Because she seems like she's been very missed in regards that we've had all.
Is she in a ladder match?
No, she's not.
Yeah. Maybe they're trying to make other women shine. Maybe they're trying to make other women shine. Maybe she's hurt. Maybe she's not in Florida. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
He would have been.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe she's hurt, but again, it's hard. We don't get information even. People aren't backstage to figure stuff out to get us the news and the information that we're used to. So, I'm not sure. Hopefully, she's all right.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure.
The rumor is Cedric Alexander got a concussion on Monday, and that's why they had to cut that match short. So hopefully he's okay, and hopefully Bianca Belair is all right, and she's just not in the show. And I like the idea of her not being in the ladder match if that was what's intended. Because I like the idea of them putting someone else over. Again, I am a unabashed Io Shirai fan, so I absolutely think she should win the match. But I'm glad that they're featuring some of the other women instead of just going back to the well with Bianca Belair. Have her work her way back to the title picture again.
From what we know, next week on NXT, we'll have the North American title match with the 3 big hosses in there.
I really enjoyed that segment too.
Really?
The talking segment. I think it was solid, establishing Sky, establishing what they wanted. Again, not a blowaway segment, but I thought it was solid, especially with the no crowd. Sometimes, when you're cutting promos, it kind of feels flat with the no crowd there. We've seen that a couple of times, but I felt like those guys were really like talking to each other rather than talking for the crowd. So I think it worked well.
What's your thoughts? Do you think we have a title change in that match, or do you think it's too soon?
I think Keith Lee wins. I think they want to establish him as a strong champion. And maybe down the road they do a Keith Lee versus Adam Cole, a title versus title, down the road. I could see that. But I think you want to keep Lee really strong.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think that it's going to be. I think you're right. I mean, I do think it's going to be a really good match. And like I said, it's going to be one of these things where I think this could be really good due to the fact that if something went wrong, they can edit it and piece something together. So I think that, this is harping on a point from earlier. I think that's one of the good things about the idea of this Corona disaster. These matches, should be pretty good as a result of being able to fix things if they don't go right.
Yeah, I agree.
As long as we're on this, what did you think of those 2 awful guys managed by the former Stokely Hathaway? I forgot his
Well, they didn't even say what their name was. I mean, they were fine. We'll see when they're in the ring. I have no idea. I'm glad that Stokely Hathaway, whatever they're calling him now, yeah, whatever they're calling him. I'm glad that he's managing a team. He's really good on the mic, so we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. They were fine, but I don't know much about them. I didn't really get a chance to do research on those guys and who they are, but they looked fine. I think it's the tag team division. NXT really needed an injection. They needed somebody new in there. That's kind of why they've been pushing the grizzled young veterans. So, yeah. No, it's good. Hopefully these guys are good. They've probably been working down in the Performance Center for a while. They also needed a tag team like that, like big guys. They needed, to differentiate from most of the tag teams they have now, which are generally smaller. So yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, and then next week on the show also we'll have all the people who did not advance in the women's matches to get into the ladder match. All of the second place finishers will be in a match. I'm guessing it will more than likely be Dakota Kai winning that because she seems like the only one who they've really decided to do anything with. I mean,
yeah, the other women are kind of stuck in place. Kaden Carter's new, and she's looked good in her losses, so they're still pushing her without pushing her. You know what I mean? Like she's still being seen as a threat. So there's that aspect of it. Deonna Purrazzo, what has happened with her? I mean, she is a real mystery on why they have not pushed her. She's very good in the ring. She had a little gimmick for a while. I don't know. And then Aaliyah is, she's a jobber. But yeah, so we'll see. I agree with you, though. I think Dakota Kai is absolutely the person to win this.
And the only other thing I could see happening is the idea if you have a Bianca Belair, maybe it's a surprise, or Mercedes Martinez.
Yeah.
One of them was because apparently, unless Mercedes Martinez wasn't able to make it, which I'm guessing it is, because originally it was supposed to be Martinez versus Candice LeRae was supposed to be the original match for this week. So I'm guessing she wasn't available, I guess, to make it in with the Corona stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine, his wife works for the airlines, so he gets to fly for free pretty much anywhere. And he got on a flight in I forget, in Syracuse or wherever, and he's like, there's 4 people on the plane. Like these airports, we saw them on Being the Elite on Monday, them walking through the airport. There's nobody there. So I could easily, a lot of flights are getting canceled and things like that. So I think that is going to make traveling a bit difficult for people as well.
Actually, you brought that up, Being the Elite. We're not going to talk about that exactly. I mean, another good episode. I think that, they're doing the best they can with the situation. But let's get into a little bit of AEW. The 2 big guys who went and debuted last week, we saw them in action in different ways. Brody Lee, got it right that time, had a promo and a squash match against the guy who throws the apples around. He looked dominant. Don't know if I love the his whole type thing where he kind of feels like he's just playing Luke Harper in another company a little bit in ring. I wish he changed his style a little bit, now that he's been off for all these months, but we'll see what happens with that. But what do you think of that promo package they did, which I thought was very interesting, like we just mentioned before, kind of a parody of Vince McMahon? Yeah.
So one of the packages was good, and one of the packages was very bad. So I think I like the promo package. I'm talking about being the Exalted One and taking over with the Dark Order. So I enjoyed that little package. I thought the mocking of Vince McMahon. And for those of you who don't know, Vince has done this in the past where supposedly he wants to eat first before everybody eats, and he wants to be, I don't know if he wants to be done with his food before people can touch it. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe they're playing a little bit to that. Then the idea of like sneezing, the guy sneezed and Vince went and Brody Lee went crazy. That's a playoff of Vince McMahon as well. So I thought that wasn't necessary. I thought it was corny. I thought it was Bush League, to be honest with you. I like the idea of making him this leader who's like kind of crazy. I like that cult idea, but I think what they should do is take other maybe movies or TV shows that have had a cult leader, and I think Brody Lee should kind of look at them and see what they've done, kind of like Bray Wyatt did when he first took over, the Wyatt family, and even in NXT or Florida Championship Wrestling. He modeled his character after TV characters who were in cults and cults in general. Like he read cult books and things like that. So I think they need to go more toward that. Like he needs to figure out what kind of cult leader he's going to be, rather than doing a dumb Vince McMahon parody, which I thought, if you weren't, we kind of knew what was going on. I knew this was some play on Vince, but I just thought it was corny and stupid. And like, what's the point? Is that going to get Luke Harper over more as a cult leader? Is that just a segment that's like, what was that? I think it's going to be more of a segment for the wrestling audience who aren't the marks, who might say, what was that? That was stupid. So I really didn't like it. I don't think there was any point of it. You're not getting anything across from it. It's just a parody off of a guy who owns another company that you were just released from.
Well, okay. I mean, I thought it was actually a pretty good promo package. I kind of liked it. Maybe it was just because it was a little levity, on the show. I enjoyed it. I mean, it will be interesting what they do in future weeks with these promo packages. One of the things that before we started doing the show again, I remember you saying, Jay, was the fact that they weren't doing enough character development with some of these guys and seeing more promo packages. So, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword where you want more promo packages, you want more character development, but then sometimes it's not going to work. So I think you got to give them credit for the swing, even if it might be a myth in your book,
No, doing the packages are fine. I mean, that's fine. Some people didn't love Jake Roberts' promo.
Oh, I love that.
But I thought it was great. So it didn't bother me at all. But yeah, I think doing the promo stuff is great. I think the one thing is, I think the audience wants to see wrestling on Wednesdays. I think between SmackDown being a goofy show and Raw being way, just 3 hours and just crazy time, I think the audience wants, they want wrestling. They want good wrestling on Wednesday. So I think when they do too much with video packages, I think the audience is kind of like, I'm good.
Okay.
So I think they need to find. I mean, look at NXT's numbers. Right, it was their lowest rating they've ever had, and it was all promo packages, which we thought was great, but that didn't necessarily hit with all the audience. So I think they're working on striking a balance. I think them doing the package with Brody Lee and the Vince McMahon parody, doing it was fine. I just didn't like that they did that package at all. They should have just done something different, in my opinion.
All right. Well,
also, let's do a package with the women. Let's do a video package highlighting Penelope Ford, highlighting Sheeta. Like, let's do something with them. I mean, I don't even know if there are any women on the show other than Brandy.
Actually, you know what? Yeah. I was about to bring that up. This is the first AEW show with no women's match. I don't know if that's because maybe most of these women weren't there, possibly, but this is the first show that did not have a women's match. But you're saying that the AEW fans or the Wednesday night fans want good wrestling. You might disagree with me, but I think we had by far the best wrestling match. I know you liked Riddle and Strong, but I thought by far the best wrestling match of the night was for the AAA title with Kenny Omega and Sammy Guevara. I thought they had a terrific match.
Yeah, I agree. I thought their match was awesome. I thought it was a really, really fun match. I think Guevara is really, really good in the ring. And I do see him as a future champion. He reminds me of like an IC champion. He reminds me of a guy who's like a consistent intercontinental title, always challenging for the second belt. And that's kind of what I see him as right now. Because he's more of like a pest heel than a heel that you think is really going to beat anybody. That's why like the second title might work for him. But no, he's fantastic, and Omega's the best wrestler in the world probably. So yeah, it was a yeah. Well, I'd say overall, but
get into that another time.
Yeah, but no, I mean we might need to do that. If they start canceling these shows, we might have to do best of lists. But no, it was you're right. It was definitely a good match. Definitely the match of the week in terms of everything we've seen from wrestling, including Raw. Yeah,
like I said, I mean, we'll get into I think the segment that is going to be the most diverse of, maybe not on our show, but the most diverse of in a minute with Matt Hardy and Jericho and Vanguard 1. But what did you think? Just to get, because I just wanted to get your opinion. I thought he was fine, but what do you think of Cody Rhodes on commentary? Him with the 47 hats, or being Triple H and everything he does. Triple H was on commentary last week. He's on commentary this week. I know
it's weird. Well, it's weird because Triple H is not a performer anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was. I thought Tony Schiavone wasn't. He was okay. He was like over the top a couple of times. I don't know. I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was great. But they're trying to make do with stuff, so I can't kill them on that. But in terms of their commentary, I remember I just watched the show before we came on air, and I just listening to them like, this commentary is not great.
Okay.
But again, under the circumstances, the first time they're doing it, Excalibur and Jim Ross weren't there. I'm not going to rip them for not being up to what I would think would be high standards because of the circumstances.
So would you do, because this was an experiment, you didn't think it worked, I thought it was okay, do the fact that the only other guy there, and I don't know what they did, because I don't know if Jim Ross or Excalibur were there for any of the tapings over the couple of days that they did since Monday. Do you think the best idea is, I know that Colt Cabana is 3-0, but Colt Cabana I thought was pretty decent in ROH as a commentator. Would you put Colt Cabana with Tony Schiavone for the rest of these tapings? I don't know if they did that or not, but
yeah, because they taped all the shows already, and so Ross and Excalibur weren't there for any of them. So Schiavone is like the whole guy, right?
I'm guessing.
I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be hard because what did they actually do? I agree. I think Colt Cabana would be great on commentary, and he's done it. So with Ring of Honor, so it wouldn't be a surprise. And I think that's a good idea to put Colt on commentary with Schiavone. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, they're throwing things together, so it's kind of gonna be what it's gonna be, with stuff. But I think the Colt Cabana thing is a good idea.
The only other thing I could think of them doing is just not showing, which they do every show, but not showing the broadcasters and just have Excalibur and Jim Ross, do from home, do an overdub or of the broadcast with Tony Schiavone, which
I don't love that idea, because the whole idea is that they're live there with the performers. Like that's kind of the whole thing of it, and then they just don't ever show the announcers. They always show the announcers. It's always a part of it. I don't know. Maybe they'll do that, and that might be fine. I just don't. I don't love that. I don't love that idea.
All right. So let's get to our last thing, pro wrestling related of current, before we get into our thoughts on most likely the best thing of the week, Dark Side of the Ring, the Chris Benoit documentary. What was your thoughts of Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho, and Vanguard 1 in our final segment? Did you think it was too goofy, or what, with him teleporting and everything, or what did you think of that whole entire segment?
That was a little goofy. I thought it was a little goofy.
Your sister has left the building, apparently.
Yeah, I love that he was cutting a promo on Vanguard 1.
He actually did something on his Roomba machine, Jericho, on Twitter, like today. He went to tape a little 40-second thing where he was saying how much he hated his Roomba, whatever that iRobot machine that they used to clean his apartment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought it was fine. It was long. But again, without the virus and with everything, would they have done a segment like that? They probably wouldn't have got to that extent. I think they need to figure out what Demarcus, what's his name? Demarcus Hardy. Yeah. I think Jason Powell mentioned this in ProWrestling.net. They got to figure out something else to do with his character other than he's got Vanguard 1. He says delete. He's broken. He's apparently 3,000 years old. It's a hard thing when you are trying to actually put over kind of realer characters that have this complete goofy character. So I don't know. Hopefully they do something. There's more layers to Matt Hardy. I just thought this segment was a little bit too long, but I like the idea of Hardy coming out and saying, "I owed the Young Bucks because they helped resurrect my career and they helped bring me to AEW. But now, seeing everything you've done and the chaos you've caused AEW, I need to do something." So the basic premise of it I liked. I just think they went a little bit too far out of the loop. It was a little bit too goofy, I think.
Like I said, I think my sense of humor has been a little bit more allowing, for this type of stuff. Maybe because of the coronavirus, I'm just trying to find something to cheer me up, I guess. But
no, the point is whether that's not the point. I mean, this whole thing is cheering us up because we have something to watch, right? We're talking about it from a pure wrestling segment. Was it a good wrestling segment? And I thought it was okay. I thought it was goofy and a little bit too long, but there's some good parts to it. So, we can't take and say, well, I want something good because of the coronavirus, because then we could say how we liked Gronk. I mean, we can just say anything that we like.
There's levels of
yeah, but right, well, we could say anything about goofiness that we like or goofiness that we don't like. Just taking it from just it was interesting, but I thought there was definitely some issues with the story between the two of them.
I mean, I will say that if you do not watch or following all of this Hardy, shorts that he's done with, I guess, over the last couple of months, I think you would be lost as a wrestling fan with this whole entire 3,000-year-old. I mean, I thought the promo was funny, the stuff with Martin Luther King being in the audience and,
Abraham Lincoln.
Thought all that stuff was funny, and I thought it kind of, because you have two great promo guys, and Jericho can just basically do anything, basically at this point. He's basically become, he's not the best in-ring performer anymore, but he might be the best all-around performer in the industry. He can take, pretty much anything and make it passable at this point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, was it entertaining? Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Was it a great wrestling segment to put something over? I don't know. But was it entertaining? Absolutely.
All right. We did forget to talk about one thing this week, so I lied. Before we get to the excellent documentary on Viceland, or now I guess just called Vice. Any quick thoughts or ideas from this past week's Raw? I mean, I thought the Street Profits at first were interesting on commentary, but I thought the match was good, but I think they were on commentary a little bit too long, and they got a little bit repetitive. But
yeah. I mean, yes. I don't really care about them on commentary. It was fine. I enjoyed the match. I think the things that Raw that stood out for me was the Rollins-Owens segment. I thought Rollins was fantastic. I love when someone cuts a promo that's logical and makes sense and has a reason behind it. And his did. He's been at WrestleMania. He built NXT, right? To a certain extent, he's right. He has made it at WrestleMania. He's been in big moments at WrestleMania. He's right. Owens has not had big moments at WrestleMania. That's correct.
He had a WrestleMania match?
Owens, yeah, he wrestled Jericho and lost, I believe. He might have won. I don't remember. I think he lost. But so he hasn't had but I mean, the fact that we don't even know, right? He hasn't had big moments at WrestleMania. So that was right too. And the fact that I love how it ended that Owens didn't even say anything. He had no comeback for him because he knew that what he said was correct. So I really, really enjoyed that promo. And I enjoyed Orton at the end. I think the work he's doing in the last year and a half between that and I'll say the last year if you want to. So the between the Kofi stuff and what he's done with Edge, I mean, the best work he's done in, I don't know, maybe of his career. I mean, from a promo standpoint, has he done better stuff than this? Maybe when he first started the Legend Killer stuff. I mean that's 15 years ago. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of years ago. Much better than anything he did as his run when he was, the champion, and they were trying to have him keep the title and instead of Daniel Bryan back in the day. I mean, this is really, really, really good stuff. And I definitely enjoyed that segment as well.
I can't disagree with you on that. I thought that
also, the AJ thing was real goofy. The AJ promo was real goofy and not great at all. I think and again, we have to preface everything with the coronavirus, right? But I think the build for this feud has been pretty bad. Even given the circumstances, I think it hasn't been great.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I like the first one a little. The first promo they did, I thought was decent. I think since it's been kind of like pulling teeth. I mean, the one thing that I will say that I find interesting about this whole type process, maybe, and hopefully they tell us either on tomorrow on SmackDown or hopefully on Monday. We have no idea what matches are on which night. Which I find interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they haven't figured that out yet, right? So I don't know that even. I mean, yes, it matters, but obviously they're still working through the kinks. We know the matches for the show, so I think that's kind of the most important thing. And they're building it as WrestleMania being a 2-night event. It's not building it as like, oh, this is what night one and this is night. I think they're kind of building it as a 2-night thing. So. Yeah, but eventually I think we'll get kind of an idea. By the way, what the fuck is a boneyard match?
I'm guessing.
Are they digging bones?
Yeah.
Like, what is this match, Corey? What is a boneyard match? Can someone on Twitter @WorkShootPod, if you listen to this, can you tweet me and tell me what a boneyard match is? I've never even heard of this before. A graveyard match where they're in a graveyard and hitting each other in the graveyard. I mean, I don't know.
Hero versus Sting. That was so good from WCW.
I mean, the boneyard match is going to be much better.
No.
Is Michelle McCool going to make an appearance? All right.
I think she will. But yeah, like I said, I thought the tag team match was good because it was fast paced, which I think is. We'll get into this most likely next week, but I do think the reason why I think I've liked AEW and NXT more than I've liked a lot of stuff that we saw on Raw and SmackDown was because a lot of these guys who are younger and with the independent style, they're used to a faster pace. And I think with no crowd, the constant movement, I think makes those matches, easier to watch. And I think the WWE style is kind of a slower pace style on the main roster. So I think that's been an issue. And I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to see as an overall product at WrestleMania with these, no crowds.
Well, I mean, you have Edge and Orton. They're older. They work a slow, methodic style. Reigns and Goldberg. Goldberg is 53 years old and has never been good. So they're going to wrestle a slow, methodic style. So, I mean, Baszler. Baszler wrestles a slow, methodic style.
Yeah, but she's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome, but she wrestles a really slow, methodic style, Corey. I mean, to your point, that's her style. Like, that's how she wrestles.
Yeah.
We could say she's awesome all we want, but to your point, she does not wrestle a fast-paced style. And so sure. I think it's going to be, to your point, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. But again, with the editing and stuff, they might be able to, like, clip stuff out to make it seem a little faster than it is. So we don't have Goldberg getting blown up and just breathing heavy into the, you know what I mean? Like, because that's going to be a thing. It's a 10-minute match. He's breathing heavy. There's no crowd. Thank God this is taped for Goldberg's sake.
Exactly. But for anyone who has not watched, you can find it on YouTube. You look under Viceland or Vice, I guess it's now called. The spectacular second season of Beyond the Ring. Started.
You can also go to YouTube and watch them on YouTube as well.
Just said that.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem. But the phenomenal second season with the 2-hour premiere, the highest rated thing ever on Viceland, blowing away what all of season 1 did.
1.4 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's pretty amazing. But like I said, if you haven't watched documentary, you can stop now, come back and listen to the last our discussion once you get a chance. But Jay, I don't often cry, when it comes to stuff with wrestling. But that last 15 minutes of part 1, when they were talking about Eddie Guerrero with with his passing, and then that whole entire second half with the murder and everything else, learning some new things. That was a great documentary, but that was a tough one to get through.
I mean, it was brutal. My wife watched it with me, and even she was like, asking me questions about stuff. And for me, Corey, I mean, I think back to that time, right? Because we had the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Then WCW went out of business.
All right.
Then the business kind of took a weird turn.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had that Eddie Guerrero Benoit storyline where they won the titles of WrestleMania. Eddie Guerrero is one of my 5 favorite pro wrestlers of all time. Like, he got me through that period where you had the JBL period and stuff like that. Like, he got me through that time as a wrestling fan, because I thought the product was not very good at all. So I really had a lot of personal connection. And I still remember that Raw where they had the tribute to Benoit, and and then you saw stuff on Wikipedia where it's like Chris Benoit killed his family, and you're like, what? And this, and thinking back to that time, because I was going through my own stuff at that time. I was 24, 25, trying to like figure my life out and had my own issues, and wrestling was like an escape for me at the time. And now, like, my favorite at the time, I'd say it was kind of Jericho and Stone Cold. He had retired, and like Eddie Guerrero, and Flair. Those were like pretty much my favorite guys, 4 favorite guys. And to see him retire or to pass away. You said he passed away in 2007?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I thought it was. So it was a couple years after WrestleMania 20,
right? Which
was in 2005. Okay, all right. So it was just a really, really tough thing, So yeah, it was a tough time for the business for sure. And I love what Jericho said about the fact that the business almost died, and maybe that's too much. But the business took a big nosedive after that. And wrestling fans, and I remember, you like wrestling? Oh, they do steroids and the guys all die, and why do you watch that shit? It was really a negative. If you said you were a wrestling fan, like, you were looked down on, big time. And so, yeah, it was just a really shitty time for the business. It really was. It was bad. And the more we discover about CTE and what happened with Benoit, it's there's no excuse. He murdered his family and murdered himself and committed suicide. There's no excuse. If he was, didn't kill himself, he would have went to jail for the rest of his life. And that would have been just deserved, no matter what was going through his head, But clearly he was a broken person with a lot of brain trauma. And yeah, but his son and his emotions, because his son was pretty stoic in part 1.
Right.
And even through a lot of part 2, he was pretty he kind of said, what was going on or whatever. But really toward the end, when he passes, when he starts crying and talking about the death, the murder, suicide, and then he's crying, and then his aunt comes out, and she's hugging him, and they haven't connected in so much time. Oh God, it was just a really, really emotional thing. It was just it was incredible. And I want to thank Chavo Guerrero and Jericho for making this happen, because it sounds like they were the 2 driving forces. I know the producer of the documentary said Chavo Guerrero Jr. was a big part of that, and obviously we know Jericho was a big part of it, connecting David Benoit and his aunt. And so it was just a really, really tough watch. A great documentary, whether you're a wrestling fan or not a wrestling fan, whether you know shit about these guys or you don't know them from a hole in a wall. It was just a tremendous, tremendous documentary that left you with all kind of emotions, especially for people like Corey and I, who like really were watching intently during that time. And for me, seeing these guys go from WCW, as some of them were in ECW, and they were the fucking undercard. Like, they were the undercard. And to go from that to the champions, Eddie Guerrero being Brock Lesnar at the Cow Palace and, many years ago and winning the title. I mean, that was a big moment, big moment. And one of my favorite moments as a wrestling fan, right? And so, I don't know. It's all just sad. And I hope that wrestlers see this and I think the business is really, I think they changed the business. The no chair shots. We don't see chair shots. And now when we do, we're like, no chair shots. What are they doing? We're going crazy. Right. I think they've changed the business. I don't think the wellness policy is as much of a joke as it used to be as a result. So I think in a lot of ways, Benoit and Guerrero absolutely changed the business. I mean, all these people who look up to Eddie, and the fact that Benoit's name is erased, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but the fact that Benoit's name is erased from WWE history, I get. He's a murderer. It's hard. It's a hard thing to wrap your mind around. The way and in hearing the details of how he killed his wife is just, and suffocated, it's just brutal. It's just brutal. So I get erasing his name. I would love for them, like Jericho said, to put Woman in the Hall of Fame. I think she absolutely deserves it. It was a great character at the time. But yeah, just a really, really sad thing, but great at the end seeing the son and the aunt reconnect.
Yeah, and apparently that happened at the event that we were at in Chicago this past year. I was watching. I'm going, wait, Sears Center. Wait,
I knew it was AEW instantly once they said Sears Center.
Right, and apparently, I guess he met Tony Khan, and because he's done David Benoit has done a couple interviews before this. One with Chris Van Fleet on his with his stuff. He did like a 40-minute sit-down interview, which I thought was really interesting. He is a very quiet guy. Apparently, he's trying to get into the wrestling industry himself now. He's very interesting. He knows that his father is a murderer, but like I said, he's still his hero. I mean, he, if he does wrestle again, he said would want to go buy the Chris Benoit Jr. He's made his wrestling style is very similar to his father. As a technical wrestler, I mean, he's not going to, of course, be doing headbutts off the top rope or anything. But I mean, it was really interesting to see this guy talk and how much he loves his father, but knows, what his father was done was was terrible and could never be forgiven. I mean, one of the most interesting things that documentary was JR. He flat out said, great, one of the greatest wrestlers you've ever seen, but he should never go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, you saw how much what he did hurt so many people around him. I mean, you never heard, Vicky Guerrero basically, talk about this type of stuff before. And you saw the hurt that she had and the sister, and Dean Malenko's wife was in this documentary, and she had some interesting comments. The wrestling family that you really, of course, us as fans never see. But you saw that the different moments, and it was interesting how these wrestlers, didn't know at the time how to deal with this stuff. I mean, all this information was coming out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, Chris Jericho has been one of, like you were saying before, it's one of those people who was a driving force behind this, where they call him a wrestling angel, bringing these two people, back together, and the idea that through his podcast, Talk is Jericho, he had on Nancy's sister on the podcast, I guess last year, which I haven't heard, but I heard that was actually a pretty good podcast. I mean, you heard a lot of things, but the one thing that was interesting was, which I guess I already knew, but the stuff that Chris Nowitzki's still doing to this day, with the research with CTE, everything else, So
yeah. I think the one interesting thing, kind of most interesting thing about it was Chris Benoit loved the business, loved wrestling, and what Jericho said that his act almost killed the business. Like his act almost destroyed pro wrestling as a business by what he did. And he was such a dedicated pro wrestler. It basically, with the concussions, whatever, right? It aided in his death and the death of others. Not directly. Obviously, he's the one who committed the crime. But just the fact that he loved wrestling and it was all he wanted to do, was all he got a paycheck from, and his love for the business, and that he almost killed the business himself. It's such irony. Such irony.
Yeah, still remember back, for weeks on end, you had Larry King having wrestlers on talking about, what happened. And it was like you saw the inside of the business for the first time, in our lifetime. You heard things back in the day with, Vince McMahon being on the Donahue show when it came to steroids and the things he did with, Bob Costas and Armin Catane, interviews. But it really did change the business. You saw behind the scenes. And you see wrestlers nowadays, they don't go out drinking. They're in their hotel rooms playing video games. I mean, it's a whole different culture now, going on. And I'm not saying it's directly because of, maybe I'm getting scared straight from, the stuff that happened with Eddie and all of these guys at that time. But it's like you said, it's a different industry now for like the better as a result of this.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. We even see that in sports too, pro sports like NBA, NHL, baseball players. They're at home playing video games. They want to have and drink at home. This isn't like Charles Barkley throwing people through plate glass windows at a bar anymore. Like you just don't see it. So that's good. And I think the drug use, and we don't know, right? Like we don't know how much these guys are doing drugs or what they're doing, but we're not hearing these cases. Unfortunately, we got an unfortunate story about Teddy Hart getting arrested again. I think he's been arrested a couple of times, but he just got arrested like yesterday. Oh, no, so yeah, so you still have those stories. They're not gone. And wrestlers still dying at a higher rate. It's a very, very physical sport. I do wonder with these guys doing their high flying, doing a much different, more impactful kind of style, similar to Eddie Guerrero, similar to Chris Benoit. I think you see the wrestlers now, and their styles a lot of them are modeled after those guys. Jericho as well, right? And what toll is that going to take on their bodies as they move forward? Do you see guys like retiring earlier? Do you see guys retiring at like 40? Or do you see guys, going into their, mid 40s and then struggling with injuries and things like that? So that'll be interesting, kind of how the business goes and what we see from these guys and then their impactful style moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we will see. I mean, last thing on it, Will Ospreay is, I think, in his mid 20s, maybe 30. The style he's done, he's not. You don't think he'll be wrestling when he's late 40s, early 50s? I mean,
no way.
So I mean, they're giving us their bodies and the stories, but we'll see how this all plays out in the long run. Hopefully, we don't have any more of these type of tragedies, in our lifetime and going on.
We will. Hopefully not to this level, but you're going to see people pass away. You're going to see that happen, but hopefully not to this level for sure.
Well, Jay, I think we had a lot of interesting conversations. I mean, next week will be the home stretch for WrestleMania. We'll see what NXT does with their shows, with the North American title match, finding out if Dakota Kai or someone else gets in that last spot in the ladder match. I think we have a lot of good things to look forward to. Jason, how you about let people know how they can follow me and the show on Twitter and all that other good stuff?
Sure. Corey's at Paladin 808. The show, more importantly, is at Work Shoot Pod. You notice I don't give my Twitter account because it's about the show. But I'm just messing with Corey. The show's at Work. The show's at Work Shoot Pod. So get a hold of us. Corey's been on the Twitter machine. Now that we have more time on our hands, hopefully we'll get on Twitter a little bit more. So follow us. Check us out.
Check us out pretty much everywhere now. We're on iTunes again. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can think of. Places I didn't even know existed. Through our great partner now with Anchor.fm has really helped us out with that stuff. So check us out, and also check out the other podcast I work on. You Don't Know Jackie on the Developing FAMDU Network. More shows to come in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks with maybe some announcements. But I'm just going to hit my soapbox for 3 seconds here before I let Jay say goodbye. I just don't get it. This 24/7 title, Riddick Moss beat two great people over the last couple of weeks in Cedric Alexander and not Homicide. I'm sorry, Ricochet, and then he basically loses in a stupid vignette to R-Truth. What was the point of him beating two of the best young performers in the business who aren't getting pushed, and then he loses to R-Truth in a bullshit segment? That's it. You don't have to comment on that, Jay, but I just had to get that off my chest quickly. But Jay, the floor is yours.
I think we're done here. See ya.